to you, Chrissy.
Hey,
Thank you.
Chrissy.
Hi, Jessica. Can everyone see our screen and hear us?
Yes,
I
all
can see your screen.
Fantastic. So hi, everyone. We're your conductors today. I'm Chrissy Rismeyer. I'm the Director of Digital Library Development at the UC Santa Barbara Library. I use pronoun she, her.
I'm Jessica Hild. I'm the Manager of Applications Development and Web Services at the far superior UC San Diego Library. My pronouns are she and her.
So I do need to point out, because Jessica makes me, that it's very, very important to note that these pictures of us are actually when we were riding the actual Surfliner train. So we'll just start out there.
It's very important. It's a theme, friends.
So to get us started, what is Project Surfliner? So Project Surfliner is a collaborative project of the UC San Diego and UC Santa Barbara libraries to create our next generation Sandera-based digital library products. Jessica dubbed us Project Surfliner after the Amtrak route that links our campuses together. And it's also the reason for all of the train puns, railroad graphics, and products named after historic trains.
I may have a couple of regrets about that.
But more importantly, Project Surfliner is the collaboration effort. It's building and leveraging the strengths and experiences of each of our campuses to focus on shared concepts and products. So just quick Surfliner by the numbers. As of today, it has been 1,069 days since we officially kicked off the project. And to quickly summarize our accomplishments since then, we've had 28 team members from 3 institutions, UCSD, UCSB, and recently UCLA in a limited capacity, working on 5 products, 2 of which are now in production. The team has participated in 57 sprints, made more than 2,200 commits. We've also sent 19,000 Slack messages, and this one is for Jessica. We have received a UC Information Technology Award, and the shark fin, which is also for Jessica, is hidden in the Surfliner artwork.
That award was the top award. I'm very goal-oriented. I just want to point that out. All right, but we're not here today to talk about Surfliner. Really, we're here to talk about the lessons we learned and about how to collaborate successfully with another institution. We will start with relationships, move on to philosophy, and then end our journey with our destination, persistence. So let's begin our journey with relationships. So the first step to collaborating with another institution is to build relationships with peers. And that may seem simple, but if you're interested in collaborating with another institution, you can't just start with, hey, let's work together. This is a picture from Samvera Connect 2018. This dinner didn't just happen at Samvera Connect. Chrissy and folks from our library have been talking for years, sometimes exploring topics together, aligning on ideas, or just getting a better understanding of the way that each other's libraries worked. And then I came along in 2018, and Arwen from our library and Chrissy were already haranguing me about working together on some project because they knew each other's work intimately. Talk with peers about the work that you do, listen to others do the same, and help each other learn and explore new things. Even if you're not working together quite yet, you're laying down the tracks to work together in the future. So where do you talk to your peers? So this is why conferences are so important. You also get to eat flaming cheese and stinky garlic dip, which I did with Chrissy at that first dinner. But go to conferences and find people who are working on the same things you're working on or trying to solve a similar problem. Go talk and have conversations with those people afterwards. Now, we all love to go to conferences, but especially these last couple of years, we're not able to go to a lot of conferences. We've seen virtual conference attendance skyrocket because not everybody has the funds to attend a conference. But being on Samvera Slack, participating and working at interest groups, and there are tons of people that are interested in the same problems you are. And if you can't find any existing groups, well, You may need to lay your own tracks. You've checked out these venues and you can't find a place to connect with people. Create your own group. You can do that on Slack or in a Samveria working group. When I started at UCSD, there wasn't a women in tech group. That doesn't mean that no one was interested in women in tech. There just wasn't a group. So put a little effort in it and the payoff can be really amazing. So is everybody on board? It doesn't matter if you've created a bunch of interest groups and are working together, merge your tracks, and you're sharing train rides. If the California Public Utilities Commission didn't sign on, you're probably going to get shut down. This is a very long, drawn-out train analogy that just means that you need to get administrative buy-in. If this has been a gradual process, you've probably generated interest in leadership, and it won't be hard to craft a story that you're ready to couple your cars. But if you're going to have to convince people along the way, it's best to have a succinct story. Why doesn't it work now? What's changing? What's the challenge? And how does that align with your bigger picture? This is probably a good place to acknowledge that certain aspects of this were probably easier for the Surfliner team because we were working in the same university system. We did not have to deal with things like intellectual property rights. Copyright for both campuses is owned by the UC Regents, and our administration didn't require a formal MOU. However, within the Samveria community, there are several examples of successful multi-institution collaborations, not within the same university system, including the ones between the University of Oregon and Oregon State, or Oregon Digital, collaboration between Northwestern and Indiana on Avalon. Okay, so you've built relationships, gotten administrative buy-in, and you're ready to ride the rails together. The second step is to figure out your collaboration philosophy. How are you going to work together? Who is going to do that? And where are you going to do that?
So for Surfliner, we spent much of our first in-person implementation meeting hashing this all out. What products were we going to work on first? What tools were we going to use? What meetings did we need? And who was going to fill which roles? So what we ended up developing in that meeting was a sprint framework, drawing inspiration from Agile and Scrum methodologies. This framework includes clearly defined teams and roles. Because we have multiple products being developed as part of the collaboration, we identified two distinct types of teams, which meet on a regular basis as part of our ongoing work: the project team as a whole, and then individual product teams. Each product team is comprised of a different group of individuals from both campuses, but includes the same roles and follows the same overall philosophy and methodology. This has been a good structure for us as it helps team members more easily transition between working on different products. Having clearly defined roles and responsibilities also helps each team member understand what they should be contributing. We also agreed that Surfliner development would be done in 2-week sprint cycles with the same set of meetings in each sprint. Some of those meetings are done as separate product teams, but daily stand-ups, sprint reviews, and retrospectives are done as combined meetings with the whole project team. This helps keep everyone up to date on the progress and also helps prevent siloed product development. In terms of scheduling, after some trial and error, we decided that having set times for the project teams to work together worked best for us. We currently operate in 56-day on-off work cycles with a 2-week buffer period on each end, or approximately 5 months a year. Having set times for working together in advance helped us balance our local development needs with that of the collaboration. So when starting up a collaborative relationship, making practical decisions like what tools you're going to use is really helpful in keeping things running smoothly. We ended up standardizing around a common set of online tools: Zoom, our Surfliner UC Tech Slack channel, Google Drive, GitLab, and Retrium. And we ensured that project leadership from both campuses had the ability to easily add new members. We also ask and kind of require that all team members use these tools when working on Surfliner. However, beyond tools and mechanics, we also found it helpful to develop shared expectations. What does participation mean, and what should each partner expect to invest and to get in return? Having this kind of open and upfront conversation can help avoid resentment down the line, something that we've seen frequently in the various communities that we're active in. This is also super helpful when collaborating within this context, given the varying sizes of institutions in the community. Individual campus partners may not have the same staffing levels. So for Surfliner, we decided early on to create a matrix of what participation meant. Developing this ensured that we were on the same page and also has given us something to share with other UC campus libraries when they've reached out to learn more. And you'll notice that we don't include specific numbers of staff in the investment column. This was done deliberately because we did not want to exclude smaller campuses from joining us in the collaboration if they were interested. From the beginning, we recognized that for the project to succeed, we would also need to develop a deeper shared framework for how we work together. Some of this was technical, like development methodology, but a lot of it was about the team culture. This may be the most important conversation to have when starting up a new collaborative relationship. Because for us, all of this happened pre-COVID, only a handful of the Surfliner team were remote workers at the beginning of the collaboration. But we decided from the beginning to operate as though we were all remote because we were all remote from each other. And it turns out that good collaborative remote work practices are also good cross-campus collaborative practices. So for example, in order to build team cohesion and avoid local bias in development decisions, we decided early on that every product team should include members from each campus, ideally with tech leads and product owners from different campuses. This practice also helped us avoid water cooler decision-making among team members from the same campus. We strive for inclusion and open communication by using agreed upon communication channels and setting the norm that important conversations should be surfaced to those channels so that all team members can see and participate. We also do our best to create good documentation, both in the code and also document when and why decisions are made. This extends to recording important meetings and all of our sprint reviews and making them available to all online. On a side note, because the team has been working together this way since the beginning, they really didn't break stride at all when we all transitioned to working from home because of the pandemic. Another thing that was so important for these types of relationships is iterative reflection and improvement. Although we did set up much of our initial collaborative framework in that first implementation meeting, we haven't stopped working on it since. We are constantly reflecting on our past to improve our future work together as a team. We hold regular retros at the end of every sprint, and these allow us to act on problems that came up in the sprint immediately rather than letting them continue and fester. Most of our daily work norms came out of this process. This practice also helps the team feel empowered to share feedback or new ideas, knowing that if we try it and it doesn't work, we can talk about it and move on. So don't skip your retros, folks, or whatever technique you use for iterative improvement. They really are crucial for healthy collaboration. And if you need a good remote retro tool, Retroium is really fantastic. But before you start to think that everything has been sunshine and rainbows and palm trees the whole time, and this was all super easy, I'm going to pass it on to Jessica to talk about persistence.
So we definitely had some challenges along the way. So many challenges. It has been really wonderful working together, but there are practical and technical challenges, like getting Outlook and Gmail to play well together. I can't tell you how much this drives me crazy. They really just don't like to work together. Our licensing agreements with GitLab was a huge process that lasted almost more than a year, Chrissy, more than a year. Teaching people how to use the Agile process, finding the correct collaborators who need to be in the room. These are practical problems that can be annoying and tedious, but at the end of the day, we found that these were the most solvable problems. There are psychological challenges, and they're really risky and they're not easy to solve. So the first one that we came across is team newness. The project came together eerily fast, and I think because of this, we expected the team just to jump in and work together. I think a lot of us forgot that it takes a while for a team to build trust, and trust is so important when you're working in a team. We have worked to resolve this in several ways. We encourage pair programming. We call out merge requests in daily stand-up. We provide guidance on how to provide constructive code reviews. And most importantly, we talked about the awkwardness in retros. Communication is a tough one. We had several challenges related to communication. And while open communication is one of our principles, we learned that there's such things as over communication. We received feedback from stakeholders that they got too many invites, too many emails. We also stopped holding a weekly public stand-up because team members and stakeholders felt like it didn't provide additional value over what they could learn via other channels. But that doesn't mean we solved this one. We still run into the problem where people feel left out or not up to speed with what we're doing. So then are we under communicating? We're always experimenting with new ways to talk to our stakeholders. Transparency is an aspect of our communication strategy that can be super scary and will probably always remain a challenge. The things that you're bad at, everyone will know by the end of this. The thing that one stakeholder really wants, but we're not planning on doing for a while, they're going to find out right away. The transparency breeds trust, though, and that's within our team and within our stakeholders. Onboarding, we totally failed at this. Following our first successful work cycle, we spun up 2 new product teams. Our tech leads and developers had worked on in the first cycle, but the product owners were both new. We had tons of documentation and sent them to 2 days of formal product owner training, but really never walked them through how to be a product owner and work within the Surfliner team. Give a shout out to the value of retros again. All of this came out in a retro. We ended up addressing both these challenges in several ways again, but we're always learning from each other the things where we're lacking. When we come to retro with an attitude we're there to learn, not to judge, we find it's very easy to make the changes for what's best for the team. Another challenge has been balancing campus priorities, the give and take of working together. There are times when one of our stakeholder groups needs a particular feature developed ASAP, and that means the priorities of that campus may need to take a temporary backseat. The other campus. For us, this has been balanced out naturally in the long run, possibly because we're mindful of not asking for this too frequently. However, depending on the collaboration, it might be good to develop some guidelines in advance on how to deal with these types of situations.
So we've had a couple of times where things just went completely off the rails. The first time this happened was in August 2020 when Santa Barbara had a major outage of our Cylinders audio archive while we were on a Surfliner work cycle, and it required immediate attention from the entire engineering team.
From the UCSD side, we knew that UCSB was having local issues, but we didn't know or understand the extent. From our side, we were working along, but getting little or no feedback, which really killed our momentum. So I talked with my team and I decided that I needed to reach out to Chrissy. That's August 18th, 2020.
So I received this Slack message from Jessica, and I'll be honest, I low-key freaked out. I was so super nervous to have this conversation because I felt like we had let San Diego folks down by just kind of disappearing.
It was nervousness on both ends. I was nervous to reach out and say like, hey, this is awkward, but I think you ghosted us. We ended up adding a how to handle derailments topic to our all hands meeting that September and developed a formal protocol on how to handle a situation where one campus partner suddenly becomes unavailable, pulling the cord if one or more partners need to drop out. It would be up to the remaining campus still on sprint on whether or not they wanted to go forward or stop the sprint. Once the fire's out, the group reconvenes and has a retrospective and determines how to move forward. When a similar situation occurred this past spring at UCSD, my campus, because of urgent work related to a system-wide ILS project, it was so much easier to navigate because we had done it before. It doesn't mean there wasn't anxiety. I totally freaked out. I didn't want us to let UCSB down. More importantly, I didn't want them just to say, forget it, you're no longer in the project, which is definitely like how I work. But you know what we did? We talked about it. We recognized the anxiety and saying, hey, we feel this way. And it's a big part of why the project works.
So, but despite all of these challenges, the impacts of the collaboration have been more than worth it. I know we haven't really talked about the products we're developing, but they are, of course, a major outcome of the collaboration. And if you're interested in learning more about the Surfliner architecture, Alex, Tamsin, and Matt will be presenting on that in the next session, so please stick around. But so far, we've both successfully put our exhibits platform, Starlight, and our geospatial platform, Shoreline, into production at both campuses, and have several additional products coming soon, a shared linked data authority platform named LARC, a staff-facing digital objects management platform called Comet, which is based on Hyrax, and a IIIF service, Orange Empire. And yes, these are all the names of historic California trains because we love our train analogies.
Let me be clear, Christy spends a lot of time looking up train names.
It's true. I also feel, though, that some of the more idealistic benefits of the collaboration have become a reality. Both UCSB and UCSD are in a similar situation. We both have significant legacy infrastructure, which requires maintenance and relatively small development teams. However, the collaboration has increased our capacity to innovate and make progress towards our next generation digital library platforms. When we are on work cycle, we effectively double our team size. And over time, as each of us is slowly able to replace portions of our legacy systems with Surfliner developed infrastructure, that capacity to innovate should hopefully increase. Knowledge sharing among the individuals on the team has had a major impact on our overall success. Neither campus has to be the expert in all of the things, but we are able to leverage those strengths that do exist. So for example, UCSB has more expertise in working with geospatial materials, so we took the lead on the geospatial product, whereas UCSD has a really strong ops unit, which UCSB has in turn benefited from. Beyond just sharing knowledge with each other, we're also learning new skills as part of the collaboration, which in turn has improved our local development practice. So our local teams have been able to apply this knowledge to improve our existing local infrastructure. We really have been able to build and leverage strengths and experiences of our campuses. And finally, while it's been admittedly difficult at times to balance our local work with our Surfliner work, even when we aren't working together, the lessons we learned and the practices we have developed have resulted in lasting cultural shifts for our teams. Speaking from the UCSB perspective, our development team enjoyed working in the Surfliner Agile framework so much that we adopted a similar framework for our local work when our new department was created. It also deeply affected our culture perspective on remote work, which was immensely helpful when COVID hit. For my team, transitioning to all of us working from home was pretty much business as usual, so much so that myself and Tamsin actually ended up collaborating with our local HR to give a series of information sessions to the other UCSB library staff on navigating the shift to remote work. So that's it for us. We hope that if you are considering collaborating with another institution, this has given you some insight on how to start and to sustain that collaboration. And hopefully we still have time for questions.
I don't know, time is a construct. What do you say, Ilke?
We still definitely have time for
Yay!
questions. And I'm just checking, the question about, Q&A box. We don't have any in there. It has been a very, very lively chat that has been in the Slack channel. There's no specific question that I can read, but if there's anything that you want to just add up, please do. Okay. There's
Yes.
a question in the Slack, and let me just read it, for the recording, if you like. How long? Sorry, Anna is asking, do you all use the action items feature in Retrium?
Do we use the action items feature in Retrium? We would like to say yes. We definitely fill out the action items part in Retrium.
We are not always so great at leaving time to address those. However, I will say one of the things that I've noticed is even if we don't consciously go back as part of every retro, the times we do go back, we're often able to clear out some of those action items because we do, I think, really all listen to each other and really take those suggestions to heart.
There was another question that was, hold on, it was under Anna's question. Oh, how long are your retros? That's a great question, Trey. I know people who have retros that are hours and hours and hours long, and that sounds terrible, and I would hate to go to that retro. Our retro is, what is it, Chrissy, an hour?
It's 50 minutes.
50 minutes.
Yeah.
It's 50 minutes long.
We try to do the speedy meetings. So we, especially with remote work, ideally we're ending 10 minutes before the hour.
Yeah, I do. I do think that having retros as a regular thing means that there's not like a buildup of things that need to come out in a retro. So 50 minutes seems to work pretty well for us.
Yeah, and this, I also think this is an area where Retrium has helped us, because for those of you who aren't familiar with it, there's a stage where you're able to both group and then vote. And then Retrium will present them in the order of things that get the most votes. And so generally, you'll hit a point where nobody voted that they wanted to talk about something, and that's kind of a natural place, especially if you're running low on time, to pause. It also helps you time box each discussion.
Yeah, for sure. I hope we're not stealing any thunder from Tamsin, Alex, and Matt. What if we are? There is another question that says, how often do we retro? We retro at the end of every sprint cycle, which is, our sprint cycles are 2 weeks.
Yeah, and to make things easy, we actually have set times that we try to hold all of our project-wide events when we're on sprint. So Tuesdays at 2 p.m. is retro time, and like demos are Tuesdays at 10:30. And so, that way everyone just knows when to expect it and can have it on their calendar in advance.
Brendan did some really great gatekeeping here. He asked what the term water cooler decision making is, which is a brilliant question. So water cooler decision making is like when you're talking in the hallways and you make a decision about a project. It happens all the time, very organically with teams. You can't have that happen if most of your team is at another location. So how did we identify it, and what do you do to move the decisions back into the team discussions? One of the things is making sure that the product owner and the team, the tech lead, were from different campuses. So then it can't happen in a hallway. And if we do end up having a discussion, which honestly didn't happen that often, that was not on Slack and was happening at a campus, we just moved it. We just made a decision based on what that information was. Like, was it something that needed to be brought up in a retro? Was it something that needed to be brought up in Slack? We do lots of swarms. Like, if there's a problem and we need to address it right away, we will say like, hey, can people jump on and talk about this problem? And so that's how we do it.
Yeah, I think that the major thing in terms of the water cooler decision making, which comes from, I don't know if you mentioned this, Jessica, but it comes from like people standing around the water cooler having a conversation at work. And because especially at the beginning, there were some of us who were geographically in the same location and actually physically saw each other. We were concerned about that. That hasn't been so much a problem. A bigger problem has been private Slack conversations. And so that's the one thing where occasionally we all have to remind ourselves like, oh, this is probably one that we need to have in the Surfliner channel, which I think is a little bit psychologically risky, or it feels a little psychologically risky at times, because our Surfliner channel is public within the UC Tech. So it's not private. We do have like 60 members in the channel, which is great. They're from, all over the UC campus, or all over the UC system, which is wonderful. But it's something that I think we had to train ourselves to be good about having that channel be very active and very noisy, and that was okay.
Yeah, the noise, I think a lot of times when we're in a Slack channel, we try to streamline it and like make it only about a certain topic. It was great. I feel like Tamsin was great about encouraging us to just make it a noisy channel and like just throw in stuff when it needs to be in there, because it does need to be transparent, and it actually helps with searching. It helps everybody be on the same page. It was a really good decision.
Yeah, and this is actually a really good point to call out. Jessica and I are the ones presenting about this, but these principles, how we work together, really were a collaborative effort with all of the team members. So those 30 people that we referenced in our by the number slides all each had a piece in making this really successful and making sure that we have a good collaborative culture.
Yeah, I mean, we're just managers taking credit like managers do. You're like a director, though. You're not even a manager. Ugh.
I see there's a question in the Q&A, which I will answer live. Do we adjust our sprint schedules over the calendar year, and in what ways? Yes. The answer to this is yes. A really great example is we are on sprint right now, and this is our last sprint of the work cycle. It was supposed to end today. I think it was supposed to end today, but we extended that. So we do try to be very conscious if there are things coming up that we know that all of the team members or a portion of team members will be impacted by, things like Thanksgiving week, or when we know spring break is coming and people may have children off from school. Sometimes we'll extend just one sprint and make it be 3 weeks. Other times we'll just sort of have a week off and then come back on sprint depending on how things sort of lay out. I mentioned that 2-week buffer period. The reason why we have a 2-week buffer period is partially so we have some flexibility on both ends of, do we need an extra 2 weeks on sprint for Surfliner? If yes, we haven't interrupted our local development schedules and vice versa. Ideally, that time is a time for the team to not be on sprint and be able to address things that maybe they haven't been able to while we're so active together. But yeah, we try to build in flexibility. We also try to schedule the work cycles out, at least date-wise, 2 cycles in advance. So we already have the dates on the calendar for our first work cycle in 2022. And we'll check in our monthly product owner and tech lead meeting and just confirm that those dates still work for everyone. So we definitely adjust things over time.
Thank you very much.